everything, everything, raw data feel, album review, let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest from Everything, Everything. They are a Manchester-based art pop, progressive pop band, experimental pop as well, who ever since their early days, around the time of their Man Alive album, I thought the band had a lot going for them. I mean, on this album, I wasn't completely obsessed with it. Some of the vocals rubbed me the wrong way, but they were taking a lot of big risks, and a lot of them were paying off, which is not something I could say too much these days in the worlds of experimental pop and art pop. It's very hit and miss. But around the time of their follow-up album, Arc, I thought they were starting to really gain some traction, really start taking off. I mean, for my liking, some of the ballads were a little bit cheesy, but a lot of this album was also really colorful, really fun, wildly charismatic. They were certainly getting somewhere. They finally reached there with their album Get to Heaven. This album showed them plowing their way to the front of the pack as far as experimental pop goes. It is wildly eclectic and quirky, but it is also super colorful, so much fun, and unbearably catchy. There were big singles, there were fantastic deep cuts. To me, everything just seemed like the next big thing. I was just so excited to hear what they were going to do next, and then they came out with A Fever Dream, and my thoughts have not changed on it since its release. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's fine at the end of the day. There are some really great ideas on there, but there are just as many sort of average ones. And their last album, Reanimator, is so boring that it just fell off my radar completely. I wanted to review it, but I just completely forgot about it. And leading up to this album, I don't know what it was at the time. A lot of the new singles that they were dropping just were kind of not hitting me really the right way. That being said, though, this is them getting back on track in a big way. Teletype starts this album off. I think it's the best track here. I think this is an awesome single. This track is a wake-up call. This is livelier than the band has sounded in so long. It's quirky, it's upbeat, it's got some energy to it. It's really catchy too and super colorful. So much more so than the band sounded in like, I don't know, 6 years. Now, while this is an AI-assisted album, I will also argue that this is some of the band's most human and personal stuff in ages. It's shockingly full of life. And this as an intro is honestly right where I thought I would hear them after they took off with Get to Heaven years ago. This is great. Then we have I Wanna Love Like This. I have a lot of the same feelings on this track. It's once again very full of life. There is so much energy here as well. It's amazing what just that alone can do to the music of Everything, Everything. And once again, I'm genuinely shocked by the amount of passion that we get here. Maybe not that, there's passion here at all. Everything's been very passionate in the past, but it's been a while since I've heard this level, and I'm shocked that we're back there. It's quirky and weird, but it's also super fun and colorful. Most importantly, approachable too. The production's really nice as well. Yes to this. Pizza Boy is really great too. It's surprisingly punchy. It's got a great groove to it. There's a lot of alternative dance elements on this album, but they often come out really classy. It's got a great beat. I love the bass groove. It's super visual and, once again, strangely emotional at times. This is just another really great single with some fantastic production. I don't really know where, their inspiration for this album or its narrative came from, but I'm glad that it's here. As far as a deep cut goes, Metroland is Burning is one of my favorite tracks here. I love the heavily synthetic feel to this track as well as just how vast and cinematic it comes off. But outside of that, there's just a sense of regality to this track. It's very epic. A lot of this album is. And listen, like I said, as far as a conceptual, narrative-driven album, this is one of the heaviest they've come out with in a while. But hearing tracks like this, I hope they keep it up. I want to hear more tracks in this vein. Shark Week is a really great deep cut too. It's got some stellar production. I love the synth work on this track, and the vocals are just off kilter enough to wake you up. And not only that, there's a sense of urgency to tracks like this that I haven't heard from the band in years. A lot of this album is everything, taking big risks, getting big rewards, and really getting back on track. Now, while this album is everything, doing all of that and more, it's not perfect. There's still tracks that I'm not that into. Bad Friday, hearing this as a single leading up to this album, really rubbed me the wrong way. It's not the worst track here, but to me this sounds like where they were at 4 years ago, trying to get back to that Get to Heaven sound. And the vocals on this track are some of the most obnoxious on this entire album. On paper, I should not hate Jennifer. It's one of the more fresh, more upbeat, more urgent sounds to this album. But it's also one that shows everything really drowning in their influences, which is something I can't say too often. And the thing is, I don't necessarily hate that, but it ends up making this track come off really faceless. And I salute the breezy atmosphere, I really do, but it just reminds me too much of what I was not into about Reanimator and some of the less interesting moments on A Fever Dream. Leviathan is my least favorite track here. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just so average. And I feel bad because this is everything trying to build an atmosphere, trying to build the backstory of this narrative. It's one of the most cinematic and vast tracks here. They're really trying to make it happen. And some of the guitar licks that we get, some of the synth passages, make a pretty strong argument for it. But it's so long, and it's not nearly as epic as it could be. And like some of the later tracks on this album are really emotional, really cutting, really personal, and done really well too. Then I hear Born Under a Meteor and I want to take it all back. This is one of the sappiest misfires here. It's so drawn out, it's just trying so hard to be deep and it just falls so flat. Let me tell you though, everything do very well with the second half of this album. Shockingly well, much more than I expected. It's a very sharp release and some of their funnest material in years. Cut Up is really sharp, it's got a really great synth groove and a bass groove as well as some of their catchiest vocals in a while. It's very animated, there's a strong dance groove, a huge chorus. It's so fun. Like, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear them stepping back in the right direction. Even some of the callbacks on this track to some of the earlier and later tracks on this album are done really well. It has a lot of depth to it. There's also Hex. This is one of the more intense and urgent tracks here. It's really agitated. At times it comes off almost like a cyberpunk single. And on top of that, it brings in a well-needed, sense of drama. This is a very conceptual album, and sometimes it's a little hard to follow, but tracks like this make it easier. Then we get My Computer, and yes, I know that I have kind of given a bad reputation to some of the more emotional tunes on here, but like I said, some of these later ones are really classy. It sticks with a lot of the narrative themes that we get on this album, but it also brings in a level of human emotion that I'm really shocked to hear. All that while not getting too cheesy, yes please. The warm rhythms of Kevin's car were really needed at this point in the album too. It's a nice change up. It makes this very dense, very eclectic album much more approachable. It's also shockingly melodic and sweet and catchy. Playful too. I'm so happy. And Software Greatman is a really fitting finale. It has the intensity of a lot of this album. It has the drama. It's got a compelling instrumental and heartfelt vocals that never seem to be too much. And it ends on a really concise note. There is a sense of finality to this track. It also reminds us that everything isn't afraid to get a little progressive at times, because this track does not sit still. It is constantly shifting. Yeah, man, this is a really solid album from Everything. And yes, there are moments here that I think are pretty rough around the edges. It's also really long. Like, when this album gets bad, it gets really bad really fast. But compared to where the band has been since Get to Heaven, this is them getting back on track in a big way, reminding us what they could do. It is eclectic, it is colorful, it is approachable, it is dramatic, it is narrative driven, and it is also very catchy. I'm liking so much of this album. I'm feeling a very strong 7. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.